Who runs Olympic sport in the UK and why is it different to esports? All that and more in this week's video. So this week we're going to be looking at two bodies that run Olympic sport in the UK. We're going to be looking at the British Olympic Committee and the British Paralympic Committee. We're going to try and understand the difference between how esports is run and how Olympic sport is run and why they're not the same. So first of all, the British Olympic Committee. Again, like other committees that we've covered, they're independent from the government and they are not for profit. They are classed as an NOC, which means that they run the Olympic sport in that country. Every country that participates in Olympic sport will have its own NOC. And essentially what they do is they use all of the national governing bodies in that country to select the best athletes from all those representative sports and get them to compete in the Olympics that occurs every 4 years. The mission of Team GB, which is the team that runs under the British Olympic Committee, is to have a united nation behind one team to push for the enjoyment and betterment of Olympic sports. Some of the brands that work with the British Olympic Committee can be seen on the screen here. There's probably quite a lot that you recognise. It's quite a high profile brand to be behind, so a lot of companies will jump to be associated with that sort of area, with that sort of level. And that's the British Olympic Committee. So next on the list, we've got the British Paralympic Committee, which is essentially a mirror of the British Olympic Committee, but as the name suggests, it operates purely in the Paralympic space. So again, they're independent from the government, they're a not-for-profit entity, and they're classed as an NPC, not non-player character, National Paralympic Committee for that country. So again, they'll have their best choice of athletes from all of the national governing bodies that run sport in that country, and then they will choose who represents them. And everything else is essentially identical at the surface level. Again, here are the brands that are behind Paralympics GB, so you'll see some that cross over from before. Some brands will support both, some brands will only support one. You can have a huge discussion about why that is and what that means. Kind of outside of the scope of the video for this week, but I just thought that was interesting. So to keep things moving, if we compare this to esports then. So if we look at the top row on the table, we can see that all of these companies are not for profit. And the only slight difference there is that Paralympics GB is funded in partnership with the National Lottery and UK Sport, whereas Team GB is its own separate entity entirely, and British Esports, even though it's not the mirror for esports, for traditional sports, it's still a not-for-profit company, but it doesn't receive that funding that we've covered in other videos. As far as representation is concerned, we've already covered what Team GB and Paralympics GB do. The interesting thing for esports is that because esports isn't in the Olympics yet, what that means is that technically speaking, if an esports Olympic Games or an E-Games was to take place, if you've been following the news with France and Emmanuel Macron, you're probably aware that they really want esports in the Olympics, is that there's a special agreement at the moment between British Esports and Team GB that if there was an Olympic esports event, British Esports would select the athletes, not Team GB, which is really unique. We've covered other responsibilities of British Esports as well, so they get to pick also Global Esports Games teams and Commonwealth Games teams, which gets delegated then to like Esports England, Esports Scotland, etc. Finally, we've just got the bottom row, so if we look at the level that these organisations represent, Team GB and Paralympics GB are super duper top level, the highest level, whereas British Esports is for the grassroots level. So the level of support that these organisations provide is completely different to the scenes in which they're sort of embedded in. So that is something that's very important to remember. So to summarise for this week, we've got the British Olympic Committee, we've got the British Paralympic Committee, and they help to run all Olympic Games related things in the UK. We've discussed how British Esports is kind of involved in that, but not fully, and how it's slightly different to how traditional sports allocate their teams. And we've also briefly covered how in the future esports could be, and hopefully will be, fingers crossed, an event at the Olympics, either through being directly part of the Olympics or through the E-Olympic series, which has been discussed at the moment. So that is all for this week. That is the Olympic councils for the UK. Remember, this operates very similarly in other countries as well. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike and tell me why. And if there's anything you want me to cover in the future, or if you have any general esports questions, put them in the comments below. If it's a really good one, might even make a video on it, but otherwise, I'll definitely reply. So this has been Vanadam with V Esports. Thanks for watching, and see you later.